A very good morning and a very warm welcome to this session on career in psychology. Let us first understand this world of psychology by knowing what psychology is. Psychology is the scientific study of mind and behavior. To put it simply, it studies the why of behavior. It talks about our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our strengths, our weaknesses, where we work, how we work, the kind of relationships we have, to whom we make friends with, what is happening in our work life. In a nutshell, it has its influence on every part of your life, right from your birth to your death. Recently, the pandemic has shown an increase in the need of psychology. We have realized the importance of mental health all over the world, and India is no exception. We now understand how the knowledge and importance of mental health saves lives, and this is visible in 50% increase in psychology intakes this year. This was reported by Times of India, August 2022. Moving ahead, let us understand applied fields in psychology. We have social psychology, clinical psychology, community psychology, consumer psychology, counseling psychology, educational psychology, engineering psychology, forensic psychology, organizational psychology, medical psychology, and trust me, this is just the start. There are many more. Let us start with clinical psychology. Clinical psychologist basically works in hospital. There are lots of government job opportunities here. They assess, diagnose and treat individuals who experience psychological distress. They also perform psychotherapy. They develop treatment plans. Moving ahead, we have counseling psychologist. As a counseling psychologist, you will be providing psychotherapy to people who are rooted in reality, which means people who are experiencing psychological disturbances, relationship issues, some behavioral problems, emotional difficulties, stress, daily life hassles, and related issues. Yes, as a counseling psychologist, you can have your own setup. Moving ahead, we have organizational psychologists. They basically study workplace behavior. They understand how worker productivity can be increased. They also develop training programs for existing employees. Let me tell you, this is one of the highest paid psychology jobs. Next, we have social psychologists. Basically, we study human behavior in groups under social psychology. It includes how people behave in social settings and how groups influence individual behavior and how individual also influences the group behavior. We investigate a wide range of topics as social psychologists, for example, communication, for example, mob behavior, to name just a few. We also design action plans here to take some actions on the topics that we. As a forensic psychologist, you will be focusing on relationship between psychology and the law. You will be acting as a consultant in criminal cases or civil disputes. For example, you might be performing child custody evaluations, offering psychotherapy services to crime victims, to name a few. Next, we have school psychologists who help children cope with problems in school settings. Students who are having emotional, academic, social, behavioral issues, they visit a school psychologist. Also, we all are aware that there are special needs students, there can be gifted students, there can be slow learners. In both the cases, a school psychologist works. Let me also add here that it is mandatory to have school psychologists in every school as per CBSE guidelines. So the job opportunities and employment opportunities of a school psychologist have definitely increased. Specifically, there are programs like Special Education Integrated Program, BA, BEd, BA with Psychology. I'm mentioning this here because these are special programs, education programs, which are aimed at helping school children. Next, we have military psychology. It includes things like treating soldiers who have a mental health issue or some emotional distress, because the life is very challenging, we all are aware. As a military psychologist, we also research different aspects of military life and we help soldiers transit back to civilian life in case there is a need and when there is a need. So we are also providing, as military psychologists, psychotherapy to soldiers and other military personnel. Then you have health psychologists. They are centered basically on psychology, biology, social groups, behavior influence, wellness, illness, overall health. They work with clients to help maximize well-being, and they also help to improve both mental as well as physical health. You have environmental psychologists who are exploring the relationship between people, their surroundings. This includes both the natural environment as well as the created environments. For example, how buildings are designed, how safe you feel within a building, how a school is designed, how a workplace is designed. What is the importance of natural environment? How can natural environment conservation be taken up? All this is included under environmental psychology. And as an environmental psychologist, you will be working with behaviors. Let me add, environmental psychologists, they work with architects. Then you have community psychology, who has their researches on community health related issues. They educate the community and develop prevention program. They are basically focused on helping leading positive changes at community level. Moving ahead, we have many different areas where psychology helps. For example, it is one of the favorite subjects as far as civil services aspirants are concerned, and I hope you all are aware of this. Then you have entrepreneurship related to it, because you can have your own setup. Then knowing psychology helps you understand every area of your life. So it is not only helping others, it is also helping yourself in this process. Let me tell you, we adapt. This meme here tells you, now we are all on mobile phones, on our social medias. So it's a small meme which shows that when a psychotherapist asks a child, tell me about your childhood, they may allow or not allow. Thank you for
Greetings everyone. Welcome to Season 2 of Martiniere Career Guidance Cell. We are incredibly elated to inform you that today's guest is a very eminent personality in the field of psychology. Dr. Sahni, who is an advisor to the Vice Chancellor of the prestigious O.P. Jindal Global University and a member of the governing body of the university. Dr. Sahni is the founder and principal director of Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, JIBS. He also serves as a professor in the university and as director of Center for Victimology and Psychological Studies, Center for Leadership and Change, Center for Community Mental Health and Center for Criminology and Forensic Studies. Dr. Sahni has been appointed as a professor of eminence by the Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. Dr. Sahni has also been recently appointed as the Vice President of the World Society of Victimology. Dr. Sahni is a distinguished scholar in the field of psychology, and his research interests span in the areas of criminal psychology, cognitive and neuropsychology, competency mapping, organizational development and leadership. He holds a PhD degree in the organizational behavior. He possesses an extensive and rich experience of 35 years in academia, industry, and governmental sector. His industrial expertise and extensive research allows for a more scientific and pragmatic approach in teaching, thus narrowing the industry-academia gap. We are very sure that you're going to learn about the different facets that a career such as psychology entails. So, we're very glad to have you on the show. And the first question that I'd like to ask you is that what do you think is the significance that a career such as psychology holds in today's day and age? And what exactly is the work of a psychologist?
Okay, before 2020 and after 2020, although before 2020, I want to give you a few statistics you'll be surprised to know, which is a report of the World Health Organization, which revealed that 7.5% of Indian population suffers from some form of mental disorder. This mental illness constitutes basically 1/6 of all health-related disorders in India, which is accounted for nearly 15% of the global mental and neurological and even substance abuse disorder, which we say drug addiction. But the point is the treatment gap, which is defined as a prevalence of mental illness and the proportion of patients that get treatment, is over 70%. Now, this is the data which they have, which I think there's a more percentage in it. But anyway, the WHO gives 70% people do not get the mental health support in India. Now, the reason could be different. You'll be again surprised to know that there are only 6 psychologists after 1 million population. And those 6 also, I have no idea how competent they are to do it. Similarly, if you see the psychiatric beds, when people have to be admitted, there are certain diseases and mental illness which it requires a medicine only. So in that case, you will be surprised to know that India has only 1.5 against 1,000 beds, the normal beds in the hospital. Against the United Kingdom have 19 and United States have 14 and so on. So those are like, in spite of the less population, they have much bigger infrastructure. Now, government of India needs to understand one thing. If a person is healthy, mentally healthy, the chances of getting other diseases will be much lesser. Now, if you see the budget of government of India, it is only like they give you less than 1% of the total health budget or 2% of the total health budget, which is very negligible. So people need to think that first is the mental health. And if we are able to control the mental health, then we will be able to have less number of diseases medical diseases which people would suffer. Then after 2020, when children were at home, many people lost their jobs, many people got the pay cuts, many people financial losses and all that has contributed hell of a lot to further aggravation of mental disorders. Although Indian Council of Medical Research, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore, they all say that there are between 15 to 20% people have experienced mental illness in their lifetime. Now, this must, although there is no data we have got, but I'm sure this must have touched to 40-45%. So all the more, the demand for the psychologists are much more, and there are hardly any people who are available. So this particular profession is in a big demand these days. People are not able to contact, they're not able to get appointments. The people are not able to find good psychologists. So I would say this is the number one field where the maximum placements or people can be occupied. That is the field of psychology.
Thank you, sir, for your answer. It is great to know that this field has a lot of potential for young psychologists, for budding psychologists. So the second question that we planned on asking you is that,
so since your research interests span in the areas of criminal psychology, cognitive and neuropsychology and many more, could you please elaborate and help us understand that what are the different avenues that psychology as a career holds for the students?
Okay, like in medicine, you must have heard is an internal medicine, cardiology, nephrology, pediatrics, general surgery, anesthesia, gynecology, and so on. Similarly, in psychology also, we have around 54 branches, which is being specialized in the area of psychology given by American Psychological Association. Now, a person can be a neuropsychology, cognitive psychology, abnormal psychology, clinical psychology, forensic psychology, industrial psychology, sports psychology, education psychology. So there are 54 branches. Now, it's not that one psychologist can be expert of all that. Why I choose to be a neuropsychologist or a cognitive psychologist? Because when I became a psychologist and I started working with people, in India, the psychodiagnostic, that means how do we assess the problems in psychology? So the psychodiagnostics are only through questionnaire systems. That means you give a questionnaire, do you feel this, do you feel that? You say yes or no, and then you calculate, you say you are high on anxiety, low on this and all those kind of things. So what we realize that most of us, we lie. We don't give the correct responses. We give the responses what we want to be rather than what we are. So in that case, I realized that it is not fair on our part that we should the psychodiagnostic through questionnaire system. So I developed the various methods where we can assess the psychological disorders or personality disorders through psychodiagnostic through machines. So like neuropsychologists, we work with electroencephalography. When I talk about criminal psychology, how to catch a liar, detection of deceit. So that we have a polygraph, lie detector test. So we work through machines. Now these machines these days can even predict my behavior, that how good I am going to handle certain issues in my life. So I want that most of the psychologists should work on machines rather than on questionnaires. Now you talked about criminal psychology. Now this is a one particular field. Why people commit crimes? What are the reasons? What is psychology in courtroom? How you can impress upon judges or opponent lawyers. Then eyewitness testimony. In India, the criminal justice system is if two people would say that so and so has done this, that person will be punished. So our criminal justice system is dependent on the evidence base. Similarly, detection of deceit. How we can catch a liar. Okay, all these things comes under forensic psychology or a criminal psychology. So we have those kind of equipments to assess that. Similarly, I also actually like a sports psychologist. I work with the Indian cricket team, I work with golfers and so on. So there, I first need to assess that whether their brain waves are matching with the frequency of their game or not. Now, very interesting example I can give it to you about football. So the football, the forward line, which is like 4 or 5 people, those who generally go and attack, they need to have a high level of beta. That's the brainwave. Okay. The quarterbacks have to a high level of, let's say, alpha. Okay, or a low level of a beta, where they should be active and doing that. But the goalkeeper should have a kind of alpha or a theta, so that is cool, calm, receptive to do that. So even in the football, the psychology differ between these three sets of people. So similarly, psychology is not same. And when I'm working with, let's say, shooter, archer, golfer, chess people, I try to reduce their anxiety level. But when I am working with, let's say, wrestler or weightlifter or boxer or a judo player, there I need to induce some anxiety so that when they are in arena, they can do it. So psychology is not a universal thing, is not a universal practice that which it can work, the way every time you want. But it is basically that person to person, it varies. So similarly, there are a lot of fields and people need to know that in which field they want to have an expertise.
Thank you so much, sir, for that answer. This really made me understand the different types of fields for psychology.
Sir, I'd like to ask you, having served as the founder and principal director of the Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, what are some observations that you've noticed in budding psychologists which serve as a precursor to their success, and how can students inculcate these characteristics or habits into their professional life as students?
Let me tell you, I'm not very happy with the budding psychologists of India. Unfortunately, it's not their fault. When people are doing bachelor's and master's in psychology, the major issue is that they are studying more theoretical things, they are studying more Western-based things, and they are far away from the reality. Now, when you travel in India, every 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers, the languages changes and culture changes, custom changes. And we need to understand those kind of things. We need to talk about more on an Indian psychology than what Piaget said or what Erikson said or what Freud said and so on. We have produced quite a lot of good psychologists in India, and their work is not being quoted or not being applied. So we have done a good job, and there are certain psychologists in India who have done a good job. But I would only say that psychology is more scientific, bless me, and objective in nature, rather than you make it more, theoretical based. Now, giving a small examples. First thing is that who builds my psychology? What is my attitude right now? From where did I learn this attitude? It is exactly from 0 to 7 years of age we learn this. So the probably 60 to 80% credit of my personality goes to my parents. So whatever I have observed, learned, that is what my personality is today. And I want to tell both of you youngsters that personality cannot be changed. Yes, rigorous activities are required. It may change, otherwise it cannot be changed. So it is important, first of all, for parents to understand that they should raise it correctly. Even when they are going through certain stress or traumatic experiences and they are having some sort of psychological or personality disorders, then it is better we should help them to overcome with this problem through indigenized system rather than adopting the Western systems.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for that answer. Again, sir, I would like to ask you a question that apart from the prescribed curriculum, what are some other resources that budding psychologists can study from? If you have any recommendations for the same, because again, you mentioned that it is us who are going to understand the different types of problems which people face. For example, difference between anxiety, depression, or tension.
I would suggest 2 specializations, especially for India. The first specialization is in the field of industrial and organization psychology. Gone are those days when people with the MBA used to get jobs in the top organizations. No, now the masters in industrial and organization psychology, they get much better jobs in industry. People have realized that if you have a psychologist like industrial psychologist, they are the right link between the employees and the employer. They can really do the employee engagement surveys. They can understand the emotions of the employees, and they communicate, and they can also communicate the employers' emotions or their procedures and processes to the employees. Number of times what we have seen in an industry that, if the mental health situation of the employees as well as of the organization is fine, I tell you, nobody on this earth can stop their progress and growth. The second one which I would recommend is forensic and investigative psychology. Not in the area of crime, but these days, sometimes employer who's trusting their employees, they want to know that how reliable this employee is. And sometimes they engage spies to know more about those employees. So there are a number of equipments we have in a forensic psychology where we can, like even fingerprinting and all those kind of things, we can relate it with the personality. And these two specializations in the field of psychology is doing very well. The third field is neuropsychology. Why my nervous system is behaving in a particular system, where the cognitive abilities can also be assessed. Then the fourth, what India requires, is a sports psychologist. We don't have a sports psychologist in India. If I have to call, I may call, count on fingertips, maybe 2, 3, 4. Okay, with 1.4 billion population, with so many sports person, probably will require 10,000 minimum sports psychologists. So these are the few areas where in psychology, if somebody study, they will do very well in their life in India and abroad also.
So you mentioned that, for example, people who study a certain field of psychology, if the organization that they're working in, all the employees are happy, or the satisfaction level is as high as it can be, it will improve the overall productive quality of the entire organization. So do you think that psychology also plays and ties up into the other career streams that exist in today's day and age?
Oh, in every, as I said in the beginning, tell me one field, I will attach psychology. There is a psychobiology, there's a psychopharmacology, there is the behavioral sciences are in criminology, forensic science, victimology, you name anything. I want to tell you, you give me like sociology, have psychology in it, philosophy, have a psychology in it, economics is pure psychology. Economics does not exist without psychology. Like behavioral economics is pure behavior, nothing else. So similarly, you name any field, the psychology is there, because anything which is being driven by the human beings, psychology will automatically come in that. This is what people have realized, especially in the COVID. And now people have suddenly, there is a big rush, whether it is our own university, elsewhere, that many students are opting for psychology as a subject.
Thank you so much for that answer. Moving ahead, another question which I had for you is that, sir, every career has certain risks with it. So what are the risks that a career such as psychology entails for a person who is very novice in this particular subject?
First of all, I don't agree with you when you say, risks are involved in certain subjects. Question does not arise. If you are honest in doing something, if you are passionate about doing something, you will achieve something. Now, in psychology, the risk is only if I'm not understanding the right kind of a behavior of an individual, I'm going to harm more the individual than helping them out. So how honest, how diligent I am in providing a psychological support to the people who require that is the main thing. So what I need to do is that first, I need to opt for a right course where my interest lies. 2, I need to study so deep into it so that I understand each and everything in that. 3, I should have a confidence that I can help people. 4, I can provide a training program and I make sure that there should be visible changes in a human personality or behavior. If you have all this, there is no way people will feel any kind of a risk in it.
So we're very glad to know about the 5 things that you talked about by which people can minimize risks. Although one thing does strike me, throughout our conversation, you have referred to behavioral psychology. So could you please tell us what exactly is behavioral psychology, and if a person chooses to become a behavioral psychologist, what is the work of in that domain?
So I've never used the word behavioral psychology. One is behavioral sciences, which is an umbrella. Under behavioral sciences, psychology is one, sociology is another, criminology, victimology, forensic science, all the philosophy, all this may come under behavioral sciences. In fact, now, if you go to Stanford, there is a Center for Advanced Study in Behavioral Sciences. When I went there, I was thinking they are going to teach psychology. They don't teach psychology at all. And they said, whosoever comes, in every field what I talk to you, there is a component of a behavior in that. They said whether mostly economics, philosophy people, they come here and they only talk about behavior. So behavioral sciences is an umbrella. So number of social sciences subjects come under that. And one aspect is psychology.
Sir, thank you for clarifying that. Although I'd like to know, since psychology is such a vast field, what are some common misconceptions that you come across in your day-to-day life, which you would like to clarify to all the budding psychologists?
One common misconception is that everybody thinks they are psychologists. Second misconception would be that stigma attached with the word psychology. If I say, hey guys, you need to consult a psychologist, you are not going to like it. Like if ki hum pagal ho gaye. So these are the misconceptions. Third is, this misconception is definitely in a big way is among parents as well. Whenever the teacher in the school says that you require a psychological support, nobody accepts that. So it is important that, we by all means, we understand the behavior in a holistic manner, considering their religion wise, that maybe Christians may have a different kind of culture than Muslims, than Hindus, than Jainis and Sikhs and so on. But once you are dealing with that, you need to understand those kind of things first, and then you deal. It's not easy because psychology, as I said, everybody thinks they are psychologists, but it's one of the most difficult thing, because you're not supposed to preach. Like a medical doctor can preach, a preacher or a priest, they can preach, but psychologist is the only one. Even if they know the answer, they will never tell you the answer. It is basically, we make other people aware that, so that they should realize and they can do it themselves.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, another question which I would like to ask you on behalf of the youth is that oftentimes we see that parents do not allow the children to, move forward with psychology, acknowledging the fact that in India, it's not as flourishing as it is in other countries. That is what a general perception is. So what do you have to tell those students and their parents?
You are very right that parents may not be interested to opt as psychology. But I would just want to tell you, there's a MBA university report which says only 11% of MBAs, they get a job of their choice. There's another report which says only 17% of the engineers, they get the job of their choice. People are not getting that. Psychologist is something where it is a new field, where people have accepted that, where after the corona, people realize that mental health is a very important issue, and more of openings are there for psychologists. So I think the school counselors should make parents understand that how important this particular field is. Just like I just mentioned to you about sports psychologists, we require 10,000 sports psychologists. Then I talked about neuropsychologists. We require a hell of a lot of people. We require for diagnostics. We require for forensic and investigative psychology. We require so many people in industrial psychology. If I say that we require probably 200,000 people, but whereas engineering and medicine may not open to that kind of thing. So the parents need to understand, and the parents should also encourage for their children to study the field of psychology.